The year I turned 15, my father passed away while saving Cletus' life. I moved in with the Durham family. With Cletus Durham's tacit approval, I became his silent shadow. Until the first day of sixth form, when I accidentally spilled the oatmeal porridge he had bought for the pretty new transfer student. For the first time, Cletus lost his temper with me. "Olivia, your father saved my life. But the Durhams have also taken care of you for 3 years. I don't owe you anything." He walked away, holding hands with the radiant girl. I silently cleaned up the mess, head bowed. Then I retrieved my UCAS application form and quietly crossed out University of Bath. From that moment on, we were even. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. After adjusting my A-level choices in the office, I trudged back to the classroom clutching my practice books. The early morning study session had just ended, and my classmates were quietly napping at their desks. In the back corner, Cletus was bent over, intently helping Rowena with her physics. Sunlight filtered through the branches outside, casting a warm glow on their closely huddled profiles. It was a peaceful and beautiful scene. My gaze swept over Rowena's pretty, vivacious face, settling on the damp patch on her blouse. Earlier, I had accidentally knocked over her breakfast, and Cletus had accompanied her to the restroom to clean up. Remembering his purposeful stride as he left, I felt a twinge in my hand where the hot oatmeal porridge had scalded me. Thud. As I was handing out the practice books, someone surreptitiously tripped me, scattering the high stack across the floor. The noise startled the group in the corner. Cletus, who had been speaking softly as he explained the problem, glanced up at me before looking down again. His friend beside him, however, started teasing. "Clet, mate, looks like your little shadow wants some physics tutoring too." By year 13, I had excelled in all my other subjects, but physics remained my weakness. Before Rowena transferred to our school, Cletus would tutor me in physics every day after the morning study session. The quiet classroom suddenly filled with playful jeers from the others. I ignored them, silently crouching down to continue picking up the practice books. Perhaps finding my fumbling pathetic, Cletus furrowed his brow and made to stand up and help. Just then, Rowena, who had been chewing her pen in concentration, suddenly linked her arm through his. She seemed to notice me for the first time and flashed me a bright, confident smile. "Olivia, I'm so sorry, but I'm rubbish at physics. The teacher put us in the same study group. First come, first served, I can't give him up, you know." With that, Rowena cheekily stuck out her tongue, a faint blush rising to her cheeks. Her pretty face paired with her easygoing expression was indeed a stark contrast to my quiet, reserved demeanor. "Cletus, I think I'm getting an idea. Could you keep explaining, please?" "All right." Cletus sat back down beside her, averting his gaze from me, a tacit acceptance of her words. The warm sunlight fell back on them, seemingly separating their world from mine in the desk's shadow. As he delved into increasingly complex concepts, Rowena struggled to keep up. The beautiful girl furrowed her brow, biting her pen cap before giving up, and propping her chin on her hand to stare at him intently. "Cletus, your eyelashes are so long. Focus, please." Cletus maintained his cool, detached expression, seemingly unmoved by her flirtation. "Oh, all right, she grumbled, subtly inching even closer to him. I admired this lovely scene for a few moments, cradling the practice books, before quietly turning to leave. First come, first served. But wasn't it Cletus who had whispered in my ear, "Olivia, from now on, could you only see me?" The classroom was nearly empty during lunch break. I was eating my lunch while working on physics problems. Next to me was another packed lunch box, containing pork ribs with Bramley apple glaze and roast chicken leg that had already gone cold. I had queued for ages to buy it, but Rowena Grafton had just transferred to our school, and wasn't used to the food in the school canteen, so Cletus had accompanied her to eat at a restaurant outside. Today's food was a bit salty, and I gradually lost focus on my work. "Why are you crying? Don't be such a wimp." A pair of long hands tapped on my desk, followed by a pack of tissues and a box of strawberry cake. Looking up, I saw him pull out a medal from his satchel and place it on my table. National Physics Olympiad Gold Award. Eric, you're back? I pulled out a couple of tissues and hastily wiped the tears from my face, somewhat surprised. Eric had been my desk mate in year 12. But he transferred to the physics competition class in year 13. Earlier this year, he left school to attend physics training at the University of Cambridge. And I rarely saw him. Today, Eric was wearing a thin black hoodie with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing a hint of muscle on his forearms. He seemed to have matured a bit. If I didn't come back, Cletus would have bullied you to death. Starting today, I'll tutor you in physics. Eric pulled out the chair next to me and sat down without invitation. He took the workbook that had been lying next to my hand and started marking it with a red pen, his knuckles prominent as he made quick work of it. Hearing Cletus's name, I sniffled again gloomily. No need. Seeing more and more red crosses appearing on the workbook, I felt a bit ashamed and wanted to refuse. But Eric was efficient. As soon as he finished marking, he pulled out some scrap paper and started explaining the problems. You used the wrong formula for this question. His voice was deep yet clear and forceful. Unlike Cletus's step-by-step style, Eric's approach to physics was more intuitive. In no time, the scrap paper was filled with his neat handwriting. I couldn't refuse anymore and quickly focused on following his train of thought. By the time I finished correcting my mistakes, I looked up to see Eric happily eating the box of pork ribs with Bramley apple glaze. Thinking hard, I realized I wasn't that close to him. I don't know, maybe he's just keen on helping his classmates. As the evening study session ended, I stood by the bicycle rack waiting for Cletus. I had no intention of following him home. I just needed to retrieve my keys, which I'd left with him in the morning. From a distance, I spotted Cletus in the twilight. He was strolling leisurely with one hand in his pocket, accompanied by a bouncing Rowena. She tilted her pretty face up at him, her eyes sparkling as she playfully coaxed. I've improved in physics today, Cletus. You should reward me with ice cream. Cletus maintained a cool expression but nodded reluctantly. He seemed to have little resistance against girls who knew how to charm. Last autumn, during our class trip to Tiger Leaping Hill for a hike, I collapsed halfway up, exhausted. Cletus crouched in front of me then, ruffling my hair. Come on, Olivia. Just act a bit cute, and I'll carry you up. But after waiting for ages, I could only stammer, my face remaining as wooden as ever. I'd rarely smiled since Dad died in the line of duty, let alone acted cute. He chuckled resignedly and pulled me onto his back. You're impossible, you know that? It was foggy and cold on the hill that day. But Cletus's back was warm and reassuring, dissolving the unease in my heart. Yay! Cletus, I love you the most. The evening breeze carried the girl's delighted giggle and what sounded like a confession. When I snapped back to reality, Cletus had already been waiting with the keys out for a while. Walk home by yourself, and don't say anything weird to my mom. Rowena noticed me and shyly hid behind Cletus. But when she peeked out, her smile held a hint of hostility. Okay. I took the keys, adjusted my backpack, and turned to leave. When I returned to the Durham's house, Mrs. Durham had prepared some scones for a late-night snack. She thoughtfully took my school bag and peered behind me. Her gaze finally settled on the slight redness at the corner of my eyes. Why have you been crying, Olivia? And why are you coming home alone today? She asked with concern. Where's Cletus? Has he upset you? If you've been wronged, tell me, and I won't let him off easy. Mrs. Durham is a very gentle woman who has always been kind to me. Years ago, when my father sacrificed his life saving Cletus from criminals, it was Mrs. Durham who decided to take me in. It's nothing, Mrs. Durham. I'm just a bit upset about my recent exam results, I said, sitting down at the dining table and slowly sipping my milk. The scones were soft and comforting, gradually dispelling the chill in my heart. Meeting the woman's worried gaze, I forced a smile. Remembering Cletus's words earlier that day about no longer owing me anything, I hesitated for a moment before speaking up. Mrs. Durham, I'd like to apply for boarding at school. There are only a few months left until the A-levels, and living at school will give me more time to revise. Hearing my request to leave home, Mrs. Durham was momentarily taken aback. She didn't think too much of it, simply opening her phone calendar to carefully count the days. Though somewhat reluctant, she agreed for the sake of my studies. Mrs. Durham smiled, her slender, soft hand gently patting my head. Your grades are already good enough. You and Cletus shouldn't have any problem getting into Bath together. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. During the time we were filling out university applications, Cletus had intentionally mentioned his choices every day. He only relaxed once he was sure I had also applied to Bath. Thinking about how I had changed my application in the office earlier that day, I silently swallowed another sip of milk. Mrs. Durham, could you not tell Cletus about me boarding at school yet? I asked, my expression extremely serious under the lamplight. Mrs. Durham looked a bit surprised. But she simply assumed we had had a small quarrel and were having a bit of a tiff. After all, over the past 3 years, she had clearly seen how much her son liked me. All right, all right. If that naughty boy Cletus found out, he definitely wouldn't let you go, she said. Seeing it was getting late, she took the remaining scones back to the kitchen. Soon after, I could hear her on the phone, urging Cletus to come home. The next morning, as we left the house, Cletus and I silently agreed not to speak to each other. Downstairs, Cletus stopped his bicycle a few meters away from me. Rowena twisted her ankle last night, so I need to give her a lift. You'll have to walk on your own. He offered this rare explanation, seemingly afraid I might insist on riding on the back of his bike. I merely nodded, my face expressionless. You. Cletus frowned, unaccustomed to my coldness. But he appeared to remember something and quickly brushed off this awkward feeling. From now on, we should leave the house at different times. A classmate has moved to a nearby estate. And it might cause misunderstandings if we're seen together. I don't want any strange rumors spreading around class. As he spoke, a faint smile tugged at his lips, as if he'd thought of something. What could he be thinking about? Probably Rowena's adorable pouting face when she gets jealous, vivid and beautiful. Oh, I nodded and walked away without looking back. I didn't tell Cletus that there was no chance of us being mistaken for leaving together anymore. Because from today onwards, I wouldn't be living here at all. The early spring chill lingered in the air, with few people on the morning streets. I pulled my jumper tighter under my school uniform as I trudged slowly towards school. Olivia. A warm, large hand suddenly rested on my head, brushing away the misty dew from my hair. Startled, I looked up to find Eric. Standing nearly 6'3". He still appeared tall even with one leg propped against his bicycle. The morning sun fell upon him, his handsome features seemingly aglow. 2 steaming pork pies were pressed into my hands as he patted the back seat, inviting me to hop on. Thanks, but I've already eaten, I said softly, climbing onto the back seat anyway as we were running late for school. Hold on to them for me, I haven't had breakfast yet, Eric said. Eric's broad shoulders shielded me from the biting wind as we rode. I unzipped my backpack, tucking the pork pies inside before hugging it tightly to my chest. Eric, didn't you already get into uni? Why are you still coming to school? Just yesterday, his class had returned, and the school had put up banners announcing the good news. Eric had won the National Physics Olympiad gold medal and secured a place at the prestigious physics program at the University of Cambridge. We're childhood friends after all. I've got to come and watch your back, make sure no one bullies you, he replied. Besides, you're rubbish at physics. What would you do without me? He knew about my situation with Cletus, and seemed aware of what had happened after the transfer student arrived. But my thoughts snagged on his words childhood friends. Were we really childhood friends? I met Eric when I was in year 8. One day after school, I went to buy some fish and chips in the alley behind the school, only to find Eric cornered by a group of thugs. He had been beaten badly, his face covered in blood. I immediately called my dad, who was on duty at the police station, crying for him to come and help. It was nearly dusk, and a cold drizzle was falling. I knelt beside Eric, holding an umbrella over him, too scared to touch him as I cried. Hey, wake up, don't die, I pleaded. Eric regained consciousness, dazed and confused, and looked up at me. You're hurting my hand, he mumbled. Why are you crying? It's pathetic. Later, I learned that Eric's parents were both brilliant professors, often traveling abroad for research and academic exchanges. As a result, he had a lot of pocket money, and those thugs were trying to extort him. To repay me, Eric treated me to fish and chips for quite a long time after that. Later, he was taken abroad by his family to live, only returning again in the second term of year 12. Well, I suppose that does make us childhood friends, in a way. As I stepped into the school, the morning study session had just begun. I stood in the corridor, holding my physics workbook, quietly listening to Eric explain a problem. He positioned himself at the drafty spot, shielding me from the cold wind blowing through the hallway. Suddenly, someone shouted from the quiet doorway, "Cletus, your little shadow's about to be snatched away." The students paused their studies, craning their necks to peer out the windows with hushed giggles. The lesson interrupted, I instinctively looked up. At the other end of the corridor, Cletus arrived late with Rowena. Perhaps due to the cold, Rowena coyly slipped her hand into his pocket for warmth. Their close proximity appeared incredibly intimate. Cletus had also heard his mate's teasing remark and immediately frowned in protest. "She's nothing to do with me." As he spoke, his cold gaze fell on Eric's and my inadvertently touching hands, then quickly looked away. Beside him, Rowena tugged at his sleeve, and they entered the classroom side by side. I felt utterly indifferent, turning my attention back to the problem at hand. As I lowered my head, I realized my hand had somehow come to rest on Eric's. His hands were always warm, regardless of the season, radiating heat. Feeling as if my palm had been scalded, I quickly withdrew it, stammering to conceal my nervousness. "Ahem, let's get back to the problem." Eric said nothing, just smiled, though his handwriting on the scratch paper became a bit more flourished. No wonder he'd won the physics gold medal, his explanations were incredibly clear. I became so engrossed that I didn't even notice when Cletus approached. He abruptly pulled me away, eyeing Eric with an extremely wary and unfriendly gaze. Then he pinched the bridge of his nose and looked down at me resignedly. "Olivia, stop this nonsense. I'll teach you physics for half an hour every day after I'm done tutoring Rowena. Is that good enough?" Cletus seemed to be compromising, his tone somewhat condescending. He was waiting for me to give in, to agree docilely as I had in the past, saying, "Cletus, you're so kind." However, I merely shook off his hand and took 2 steps back. "No need." I then pointed at Eric. "He teaches better than you." Cletus's face instantly darkened after being publicly rejected, his words taking on a sharp edge. "Suit yourself." He strode back towards the classroom with long steps, but stopped after a few paces to say coldly, "Since you're so fond of studying physics, you needn't come to my birthday party tonight." Today was Cletus's birthday, and I had always spent it with him in previous years. I blinked and nodded. "Oh." Cletus's expression soured further as he quickly returned to his seat. The onlookers immediately resumed their teasing with cheeky grins. The little shadow's been ditched. That person was Cletus's mate, always humiliating me publicly without restraint. What upset me more was that Cletus had never once put a stop to it. "Ow, ow, ow. It hurts." When I came to my senses amidst the yelping, Eric had already walked to the window. He reached in and grabbed the collar of that person, forcibly dragging half his body out of the window. "If your mouth is so foul, I wouldn't mind sewing it shut next time." Under my sparkling gaze, Eric firmly patted the person's face. "Apologize." Sorry." Amidst the laughter of the crowd, the person stammered out an apology, his face flushed. Eric let go and walked back to my side, reverting to his well-behaved student demeanor. "Thank you, Eric." I looked up at him and thanked him softly, unable to suppress the smile on my lips. He bent down close to my face, feigning seriousness. "To repay me, you'll queue up to get me some pork ribs with Bramley apple glaze for lunch today." He leaned in quite close, his warm breath fanning across my face. Flustered, I pushed against his chest, creating some distance between us. All right." As the evening study session ended, I received a message from Mrs. Durham. "Olivia, dear, you're going to celebrate Cletus' birthday today, aren't you? Don't stay out too late, and remember to wear a coat. It's getting chilly." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, eventually tapping out a simple OK. After sending the message, I scrolled through Cletus's social media feed. There was a photo of two hands clasped tightly together, captioned with "you" on the left, me hugging the right. It was lyrics from Cletus's favorite song, one he used to hum in my ear before Rowena came along. He hadn't shown up for evening study today, leaving two empty seats at the back of the classroom. Apparently, he was off celebrating his 18th birthday with Rowena. The post had garnered quite a few likes, everyone had seen it. Some less-informed friends assumed he was holding my hand, offering enthusiastic congratulations. 3 years of effort finally paid off. Congrats on winning over your little shadow. That comment vanished within a second, promptly deleted by Cletus. I switched off my phone, showing no reaction. No like, no comment, no well wishes. From the moment he said, "I owe you nothing," we had become strangers. Olivia. As I exited the school gates, I spotted Eric leaning against his bicycle under a streetlight, waving at me from afar. His posture was relaxed, the dim light casting a small shadow across his brow. I suddenly noticed a tiny red birthmark at the corner of Eric's smiling eyes. Clutching my chest, I felt as if a butterfly had taken flight within. "Eric," I called out, ambling towards him. "It's my birthday today, and my family's abroad," he mentioned casually, taking my bag and slinging it over his shoulder. "Since I've been tutoring you in physics, how about keeping me company for my birthday?" I nodded, settling comfortably onto the back of his bicycle. "Sure, why not?" I took Eric to my favorite ramen shop. Before my father passed away, he would bring me here every year on my birthday. Near the entrance, there was a claw machine. For every bowl of ramen ordered, you'd get one chance to play, with the grand prize being a giant ramen plushie. The shop served us 2 bowls of thick tonkatsu ramen. Eric and I sat side by side, earnestly slurping the steaming noodles. The soft-boiled egg was perfectly tender, and the pork broth rich yet not greasy. "Cheers to you, Eric." "Happy birthday," I said, raising my cup of barley tea to clink with his after finishing the last of my hearty noodles. Eric gulped down his tea in one go, accepting my wishes. "Then my wish for this year is for you to improve in physics and get into the university you want," he said with a smile, making a solemn wish towards the ramen plushie in the corner. I took out a loyalty card from my school uniform pocket and handed it to the shopkeeper. It had 20 stamps on it. This was originally meant for Cletus. For the past 2 years, I'd come here with him on his birthday to eat ramen. Unfortunately, we never had the luck to win that coveted ramen plushie in 2 consecutive years. Thinking of this, I looked up at Eric, who was now pressing his face against the glass of the claw machine, grinning foolishly. This year was different. This year it was Eric. Surely we'd win it this time? As we left the ramen shop, Eric was hugging a giant ramen plushie, his face beaming with joy. Noticing my gaze, he cleared his throat and tried to suppress his smile. A warm woolen scarf, still carrying a hint of body heat, was wrapped around my neck. "Olivia, this birthday has made me very happy," he said. His gaze was intense and sincere, and I felt my cheeks grow warm. "I'm glad you're happy," I mumbled. I buried my face in the scarf, secretly hiding my own smile. Eric dropped me off at the Durham family's house, promising to pick me up in the morning. I took a deep breath and patted my cheeks. As I approached the shadowy entrance, a strong smell of cigarette smoke wafted towards me. I wrinkled my nose and tried to skirt around it, but Cletus grabbed me suddenly. There were cigarette butts scattered at his feet, and a smear of pink lipstick still clung to the corner of his mouth. "Where's my birthday present?" he demanded. Cletus ran his fingers through his hair in frustration, then abruptly pushed me against the wall. "Let go of me," I protested. In the darkness, we were far too close. His breath, reeking of smoke, fell on my ear. This intimate contact made me feel slightly ill. I struggled hard but couldn't break free. "Olivia Lancaster, where's my birthday present?" There was a faint smell of alcohol on him too, he seemed a bit tipsy. I clutched my backpack to my chest, trying to maintain some distance between us. Cletus's gaze fell on the ramen keychain dangling from my bag, his eyes lighting up slightly. "I knew it, you went to the ramen shop. You got me a toy from the machine, didn't you? Didn't win the ramen plushie again this year?" No worries, I like the keychain too. His tone suddenly softened as he reached out to take the keychain. Taking advantage of his lowered guard, I shoved him hard, pushing him into another corner. Then I dashed out to the street, standing under the bright lamplight. There were some cardboard boxes piled in the corner, and Cletus stumbled, nearly tripping over them. But he wasn't angry. He just looked at me with sad puppy dog eyes. I know you're upset that I celebrated my birthday with Rowena tonight. She asked me to stay overnight, but I refused. There's still 2 hours until midnight. Spend it with me and we'll celebrate again. That superior look again, as if his attention was some great favor to me. Cletus strode over, easily gripping my arm, trying to drag me out of the estate. He was too strong, his grip was starting to hurt. Even more frightening was the look in his eyes, full of aggression. As if he wanted to devour me whole. You're hurting me, Cletus. Let go! I frantically beat at his hand, struggling wildly, tears threatening to spill over. Olivia, do you like me or not? He'd barely taken a few steps when Cletus was suddenly kicked hard, cutting off his words. He flew past me like a kite with its string cut. Then sprawled on the ground with a pained groan. Before I could process what had happened, I found myself pulled back against a warm chest. A large hand gently gripped my shoulder. And a physics workbook appeared in the lamplight. Why are you crying? Don't be such a wimp. Eric shoved the physics workbook into my backpack. Then he kicked Cletus squarely in the back twice. Didn't you hear her tell you to let go? He growled. Didn't you hear her say you were hurting her? It was the first time I'd seen Eric so angry. His thin lips were pressed into a hard line, and his whole body was shaking involuntarily. Yet his touch on my shoulder remained gentle. After taking a few kicks, Cletus seemed to sober up a bit. His gaze fell on the giant ramen plushie tied to the back of Eric's bicycle. Then it moved to my neck, where I wore a scarf that matched Eric's jacket. His eyes suddenly turned red with anger. Bloody hell, Eric Sheffield, you dare mess with my girl. Cletus lashed out, throwing a hard punch at Eric's face. Without thinking, I rushed forward and shoved him into the cold fountain behind us. After splashing about in the water for a few moments, Cletus was completely sober. Remembering how he had grabbed at me earlier, his face darkened with shame. Eric, are you all right? Does it hurt? I guided Eric under a streetlight, cradling his face to examine the injury closely. His lip was slightly cut and swollen. Ouch, Eric hissed, but seeing tears welling up in my eyes, he quickly held them back. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Don't cry, he said, gently pinching my cheek and putting on a mock stern expression. I'm fine. You should go up now, Mrs. Durham must be worried. Following his gaze, I saw Mrs. Durham peering anxiously from the balcony above. She waved at me, looking concerned. Remember to put some medicine on that when you get home. See you tomorrow, Eric. See you tomorrow. Under the streetlight, Eric ruffled my hair and patted the head of the ramen plushie on his bike. He shot one last glare at Cletus before cycling away. Cletus followed a few steps behind me as we climbed the stairs. At first, we were both completely silent. Then he caught up and explained softly. I was just worried he might hurt you. That's why I rushed in. I kept my face expressionless and didn't look at him again. The only one who's been hurting me is you, Cletus. He paused, his voice tinged with defeat and anxiety. I'm sorry, Olivia. Look, my hands all scraped up too. My body aches. In the past, whenever Cletus got even slightly hurt, I'd frantically search for medicine. He seemed to enjoy seeing me so worried that I'd cry over him. So he'd exaggerate his pain even more. And I'd end up crying even more. Back then, he must have seen my tears as trophies. Look here, this girl secretly fancies me so much she even cries out of concern for me. Huh. I entered the house without acknowledging him and went straight to my room. To my surprise, Cletus tried to follow me in without any hesitation. There wasn't much left in the room anyway. My accommodation application for university had already been approved. These past couple of days, Mrs. Durham and I had packed up most of my belongings. I could move to the university tomorrow. After that, I'd never have to see Cletus again. So I didn't want him to come in. I didn't want him to find out, didn't want any more drama with him. You can't come in, I said, blocking his way and quickly trying to close the door. Cletus frowned and wedged his foot in the doorway, trying to force it open. Why can't I come in? This is my house, not yours. Why shouldn't I be allowed in? Hearing this, I lowered my head, feeling a chill run through me. That's right, this was Cletus's house. As I let my guard down, Cletus suddenly shoved the door open. I fell backwards onto the floor, the back of my head hitting hard. The room started spinning. But Cletus still couldn't get in. Just as he forced the door open, Mrs. Durham angrily pulled him away. After locking the door, I sat dazed on the bare floor, feeling the bump forming on the back of my head. The suitcase by the bed was still open, with a small stack of photos Mrs. Durham had tucked into one corner. I crawled over and looked through them carefully, one by one. Every photo of Cletus and me, I tore to pieces and threw in the bin. From now on, Cletus and I would have nothing more to do with each other. My father's life had bought me 3 years in the Durham household. You could say we were even now, but the debt still felt hard to settle completely. The next day was Saturday. When I woke up early in the morning, Cletus had already left the house. Mrs. Durham knocked on the door and came in, gently embracing me as I sat dazed on the edge of the bed. Our dear Olivia has been wronged in this house. I must apologize to you, she said softly. Please don't take to heart those awful things Cletus said last night. My home will always be your home too. Her embrace was soft and carried a faint scent of lavender, soothing my troubled heart. I hugged her tightly, tears once again falling freely. Even though I despised Cletus, I still adored Mrs. Durham very much. I'm not wronged, Mrs. Durham. I love you the most, I said. The two of us went downstairs and had a warm breakfast before packing up my luggage and heading out. Before we even reached the girls' dormitory, we could see Eric in the distance, pleading with the dorm manager. Please, ma'am, you're so kind, he begged. I'm just helping a friend move some things. I'll be down in a jiffy. He was holding a cup of hot milk and a sandwich, which he offered to the dorm manager. Today, Eric's hair was neatly combed, and his school uniform was pressed immaculately, quite an unusual sight. Eric, over here. I waved to him, briefly introducing him to Mrs. Durham. Eric, usually a chatterbox, was uncharacteristically quiet, even bowing deeply as he greeted us. He then promptly hoisted up my suitcase and dashed up the stairs. After several trips up and down, Mrs. Durham's initial surprise gradually turned to understanding, and then to exasperation. Humph, at least he's got better taste than that rotten Cletus, she muttered. That evening, Cletus, who hadn't attended evening study sessions for several days, suddenly burst in. His face was gloomy as he gripped my wrist tightly. Olivia, are you trying to avoid me? He demanded. Who gave you permission to board? Come back with me. The silence in the room was shattered, and students who had been engrossed in their revision looked up in surprise. It was embarrassing, all this pulling and tugging. Unable to break free, I reluctantly stood up and led him to a less crowded corridor. You're disturbing everyone's revision, I said. The light in the corner was dim, casting a hazy glow on us. Cletus suddenly pinned me against the wall, his eyes brimming with barely concealed emotion. His voice was husky as he pulled out those torn photos he had painstakingly pieced back together from his pocket. Did you start boarding because you don't like me dating Rowena? He asked. We're not together. That social media post was just a joke. I'll drive you to school from now on. I'll tutor you in physics. Olivia, will you only look at me from now on? Those usually cold, distant eyes now held a hint of pleading and a touch of hurt. What an act, I thought to myself, silently scoffing. Then I realized I was starting to sound a bit like Eric. Cletus, who you date is none of my business, I said. My boarding is my own affair and has nothing to do with you. Evening study time is precious. Please don't disturb my revision. Taking advantage of his emotional state, I pushed hard and broke free from his grip. I stepped back into the bright light and clearly and concisely expressed my thoughts with a serious demeanor. But Cletus didn't believe me. He bent down, patiently trying to coax me. Olivia, don't be angry. You know, The person I've always liked is. However, before he could finish, a phone call interrupted him. Cletus frowned and hung up immediately, but the caller was persistent. Cletus, they're cornering me in the alley. I'm so scared, came Rowena's tearful voice from the other end. Soft and delicate enough to melt anyone's heart. Sure enough, Cletus's expression changed dramatically. He hurriedly asked for the address. Olivia, I'll come back to pick you up after class. We'll go home together then. Wait for me, I'll be back. The evening breeze picked up as I stood in the soft light, watching Cletus walk step by step into the darkness. See, we were ultimately from two different worlds. I breathed a huge sigh of relief after escaping his entanglement. Just as I was about to return to my studies, the bell signaling the end of class rang. Remembering I had arranged to meet Eric at the back gate, I hurried over. I arrived early. The usually bustling fence area was still quiet. Eric's tall figure was easy to spot. I found him without much effort. Seeing me, he swung his backpack over one shoulder and vaulted over the wall. School rules say no climbing over walls, I said, glancing around nervously, afraid of being caught by the student council's patrol. Eric walked to a nearby gazebo and pulled out a steaming parcel of food from his bag. He unpacked the ravioli, poured the sauce, and added some greens, a poached egg, and roast pork. Don't worry, they can dock my points. Come and eat, he said, sitting on the stone bench and preparing the cutlery, eagerly waiting for me to join him like an excited puppy. I took a bite. The crab ravioli was delicious, leaving a lingering taste. I felt a warmth spread through my stomach, and my heart began to melt. Didn't you say you were bringing physics notes? I asked, munching on the ravioli while flipping through the densely written notes he'd brought. Some ink marks were fresh, clearly recent additions. Eric took the notebook and pulled out a red pen from his pocket, circling and marking various sections. Thought you might be hungry. Studying physics is tiring, he said. You eat, I'll explain a bit. The University of Cambridge Physics Lab is starting a new project. I got a spot to observe and learn. I have to leave early tomorrow morning. These notes cover all the A-level highlights. I've marked the most important parts to go over with you quickly. Don't worry, you can video call me every day. I'll teach you online, it'll be just as effective. One side of the gazebo faced the wind, so Eric shifted his position to shield me. Under the dim streetlight, his chattering voice began to blur, and the physics formulas in the notebook started to dance before my eyes. I realized I was losing focus. Because of Eric. I patted my cheeks to wake myself up before he noticed. Thank you, Eric, I said. He paused, his eyes suddenly brightening. No need to thank me. When you get into Cambridge, you can queue up to get my meals every day. At the mention of Cambridge, Eric couldn't suppress his smile. Our class representative happened to pass by and curiously came over, then gave us a bewildered look. Good lord, solving physics problems with a grin like you've won the lottery, he remarked. Despite his teasing, the class rep still pulled out a physics quiz from his pocket and eagerly asked for help. I quietly made room for him, moving to the side with the notebook to digest the key points, occasionally taking a bite of ravioli. The day I crossed out University of Bath on my UCAS form, I actually put down University of Cambridge. Who knows? Perhaps it was meant to be. Maybe it's fate. After saying goodbye to Eric, I walked back to the classroom with our class representative, discussing the exam questions. As I finished packing my things, I suddenly received several photos from Rowena on my mobile. The first one showed Cletus kneeling on the ground, applying ointment to her thigh wound. The second one displayed scattered beer bottles and disheveled clothing strewn across the floor. The third one was eye-searing. Blocked. For some inexplicable reason, I recalled Cletus's particularly solemn words as we parted. Wait for me, I'll be back. What a pretender. Blocked the bloke too. The mock A-levels went exceptionally well. My physics had improved greatly these days, and Eric's notes were spot on with the key points. During lunch break, I was alone in the classroom reviewing my exam papers, when I heard the door being locked. Suddenly, a warm, moist kiss landed on my neck, like a venomous snake slowly writhing. I froze for a moment, then grabbed my thermos from the desk and swung it with all my might at the person behind me. "It's me, Olivia." Cletus clutched his forehead, wincing in pain. The room was empty, the door locked, and the windows too high to climb out. I tried to calm my panic, reaching into my drawer for a sharp craft knife and gripping it tightly. "Cletus, are you mental?" Seeing my defensive posture, a bitter smile played on Cletus's lips. His usually cool eyes dimmed, and his shoulders slumped, looking utterly dejected. "Olivia, I'm sorry. That night when Rowena was cornered by those thugs, I went to help her intending to clear things up. I told her the person I liked was you. That's when I realized how much I truly cared for you. Can't you give me another chance? We could go to Bath together. We still have so many years ahead." His voice grew hoarse, trailing off with a hint of a choke. In the 3 years I'd known him, I'd never seen Cletus so distraught. But what did it matter? The story about Rowena being cornered by thugs was all lies. I'd seen her smoking with that group behind the school with my own eyes. But that was none of my business. I calmly took out my phone, scoffing as I unblocked Rowena's WhatsApp. "Cletus, your affection seems rather cheap." The moment he saw the screen full of compromising images, Cletus's face turned ashen. He tried to deny it, but the words caught in his throat. "I didn't know. I truly didn't know she took those pictures." That night, Rowena was crying. She begged me to stay with her just once, and then she'd let go. I'd had a few drinks, and in my drunken state, all explanations
After a
seemed
long
feeble.
pause,
He finally
Cletus
mustered the
fell
courage
silent,
to ask
hanging
tentatively,
his head.
"Olivia, I've lost my chance, haven't I?" As lunch break ended, someone unlocked the door from outside. I gathered my practice books and hurried past him without a second glance. After finishing my A-levels, I found a part-time job with room and board, and didn't return to the Durham's house. Mrs. Durham would come to see me every few days, and our relationship didn't grow distant despite the separation. On the day I went back to school to collect my acceptance letter, I saw Cletus again under the big tree at the school gate. He was leaning on crutches, quietly waiting for me, holding the acceptance letter from the University of Bath in his hand. Not long ago, I had learned from Mrs. Durham that Cletus had been ambushed by some thugs in an alley, and had his leg broken just 2 days before the A-levels. But he still gritted his teeth and insisted on taking the exams. He had lost quite a bit of weight these days and looked haggard. Even with the sunlight filtering through the tree branches, his face still appeared gloomy. Only when he saw me did a hint of joy appear on Cletus's face. "Olivia, don't think you can get rid of me. I have the patience of a lifetime. When we get to Bath, we'll start over. If 1 year isn't enough, then 2. If 2 years aren't enough, then 3. No matter how many years it takes, I'll wait for you." His eyes were slightly red, his gaze filled with intense obsession and possessiveness. Like a persistent leech. I frowned and took out my acceptance letter from the University of Cambridge, showing it to him. "Cletus, stop bothering me. The Durhams took me in for 3 years, but my father saved your life. I've never owed you anything." Cletus trembled, his gaze desolate and desperate. Everything seemed to have returned to the beginning. We took different paths. As I stepped out of the school gates, Eric had already been waiting for quite some time. The young lad was wearing a black t-shirt with the collar slightly open, his satchel slung across his body. In one hand he held an umbrella, and in the other, a large bouquet of purple irises. The flowers were in full bloom, vibrant and passionate. Much like the adoration he couldn't quite hide no matter how hard he tried. As the bouquet fell into my arms, I felt a cool dampness from the petals. To my surprise, I discovered a small pink love letter hidden among the flowers. It was all rather innocent and sweet. Eric, however, was far too nervous to look at me, staring straight ahead while muttering under his breath. Why should latecomers get ahead? Because they push and shove their way to the front. When I caught what he was saying, I couldn't help but laugh, secretly taking hold of his hand. "Eric, you were here first," I said softly. "After all, we've been childhood sweethearts, haven't we?" After Eric was cornered and beaten up at the end of year 8, he spent some time mooching meals at my house. Every day after school, he would use his pocket money to treat me to fish and chips. When we got tired of fish and chips, it changed to ice cream. When we got bored with ice cream, it turned into cupcakes. He tirelessly used his pocket money to feed me until my dad found out and strictly forbade it. The night before he left for abroad, he sneaked to my house to bring me a strawberry cake, chattering nonstop. "Olivia, I've been saving up my pocket money, it's all for you to spend in the future. Olivia, you should apply to Cambridge too. Please, this way we'll be childhood sweethearts. Don't forget me, don't underestimate the bond between us. Olivia, wait for me, I'll be back."